But I brought somebody from New York who was there, Egyptian, and we visited. And Muhammad Zain said to me, is he a Sharif? And I said, not that I know of. And he said, no, he's a Hassani, you know, he's from the family of Hassan. And I told the person that they didn't know about it. When we got back to New York, I asked his mother, you know, what their lineage was. And she said, well, my grandfather says that we're Hassanis. You know, but I never took that seriously. I've seen that many times. I mean, I was with somebody in here, we were in Morocco, and one of the people there also asked me, is that person from the Sada, from India? And I said, yes. And he said, mashallah, you know, ahlan bisada. So there's people that see it like it's real. And some of them, they've got, I saw a man the other day, it was so clearly a Sayyid, you know, and I just said, you know, are you from the Sada? He just started crying. Because a lot of them are ashamed of it now. You know, it's like they feel so much shortcoming, you know, because of the responsibility. But really honoring the family of the Prophet. There's no doubt some of the family abused their rank amongst the Muslims, because Muslims used to really take this very seriously. In Egypt, it was a law during the Mamluk period. You had to actually wear a turban to distinguish that you were from the family, so that nobody from the family would be insulted or mistreated. So the men had to wear green turbans. It was actually a law. If you were a Sayyid, you were supposed to wear a distinctive badge of honor. So many of the great ulama were Sada. There's also ghulu in it. Some of the Shia tradition go to an extreme and say that the A'imma are infallible. We don't believe that. They're human beings, they make mistakes. And so some of the Sada have abused that. But even Sidi Ahmed Zarruq said, even if they abuse it, or they're sinners, or they're distant from Allah, you should always have compassion and mercy for them, and look at them as your best friend and most beloved's child, that you just feel bad for them. Like you don't have any animosity towards them. Even if they do something to you wrong, you don't. And that's why Imam Malik, when he was whipped unjustly by the governor here, who was a descendant of the Prophet ﷺ, he said that every time the soldier raised the whip, he asked forgiveness for Mansur for doing that, because of his place in relation to the Prophet ﷺ. That's love. So it's important to really love the family. And the Muslims have lost this quality. You know, we've just lost adab, we've lost, you know, traditionally they always made sure that the Sada, if they were there, because they're descendants of the Prophet ﷺ. And then on the other hand, to the Sada, because there are people in here that are related to the Prophet, there's an obligation to be noblesse oblige, like the French say. You know, nobility obliges you to behave in certain ways. So there's an onus also on the Sada to behave with dignity, to not do things that are inappropriate for their... I mean, this is true for anybody, but in particular, more so. It's like fasting. When you fast, it's haram to backbite. But when you fast, it's really haram. Do you know, when you're in Mecca, things are not the same as when you're outside of Mecca. It's still haram to do certain things, but in Mecca, it's really haram. It's much more serious. And the same is true for the Sada. It's the way it is, because the blood of the Prophet runs in their veins, and the Prophet never intended for any of his offspring to be other than righteous servants of God. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. That was his desire. He made dua for his own dhurriya. So no matter how far they go astray, they're still his children, and we should hope for the best for them and good for them always. Make dua for them. Treat them with courtesy always, because they're Sada. And if they're ulama, then they have a double right. They're Sayyid and Alim, they have double right. Ibn Abbas, Usama bin Zayd, when he took Ibn Abbas out, Ibn Abbas was taking him out, and he said, no, this is far enough. And he said, no, we were commanded to do this with our ulama, because he was from the ulama. And he kissed him, and he said, we are commanded to do this with the family of the Prophet ﷺ. And we know that Sayyidina Omar used to take Al-Abbas out in Sahih al-Bukhari. And when the drought would come, he would take Al-Abbas out and make shafa'ah with the uncle of the Prophet and say, we used to do this with the Prophet. When he was here, we would do it with him. Now we're doing it with Abbas. To show the people that the family of the Prophet is still with us. Their presence among us is part of the prophetic presence in the world. And that's why it's important for them to be people of generosity. The Sada should be the most generous people. And traditionally, they were given money just so they could be generous. And that's why a portion of the booty, the fifth, goes to the family to take care of all their needs, but also so that they could distribute it and be generous, and it creates love, engenders love in the people. So it's the only, every religion, Islam is an egalitarian religion. There's no doubt about that, but there are distinctions amongst people. And the distinctions are primarily distinctions of piety and learning. Those are first and foremost. But lineage does have its place. There's no doubt about that. The Prophet talked about good families. It's also recognized in the Shafi'i madhab. It's not Maliki. My madhab teaches there's no distinction in lineage. But in the Shafi'i madhab, they recognize lineage as something that is in marriage and things like that it can be a reason for incompatibility in the Shafi'i madhab, not in the Maliki. But certainly the Al-Bayt of the Prophet ﷺ, they do have that distinction, just by the mere fact that they're descendants of the Prophet. And that is true also for Quraysh generally. And then for the Ashraf are people related to the family, not directly, like the Alawiyin, people from Ali's other wives, not from Fatima. The Sada are from Fatima, and they go through Hassan and Hussein. The Husseinis are mostly in the east, the Hassanis are mostly in the west, because the family split during the tribulations. And they were massacred, killed, a lot of them were literally butchered. They're very afraid of them because of the Shia revolutions against the Umayyad and the Abbasid power, and the fear of the rise of the family's claims to the caliphate. That's where that comes from. So there was a lot of real treachery, a lot of killing. But you should love the family and honor them, because they're the children of our Prophet ﷺ. And he would certainly, he loves them. I mean, I've seen people, somebody came up to me once, and I mean, I just knew she wasn't really practicing Islam. I didn't assume that, but I just felt that. And she started telling me about these dreams of the Prophet she was having. And I just said, are you a descendant of the Prophet? And she was like, how'd you know? And the only way I knew was, there's no way he would come to people that weren't, if they're not really practicing, unless he's got some special connection with them. So that happens to his own children. And that's why he does intercede for them. In Nafkhat al-Ula, there's no, La ansab bainahum yawma idin. The Quran says there's no nasab on the first nafkha. There's no nasab. But on the second one, there is. He intercedes for his family. And people that don't believe that are just wrong. He intercedes for his family. And he says, لا أسألكم عليه الأجر إلا المودة في القربى. Say, I'm not asking you a reward for this deen. I'm not asking you for any money, but love my family. That's in the Quran. So it's part of our deen to love the family of the Prophet. And then the other thing I'd add for the Sada and the Ashraf is that those people who do not practice and especially don't show a lot of commitment to the religion, they always have tribulation. It's just a given. You're going to have tribulation. They have a lot of depression in the family, a lot of poverty, calamities, children. I mean, just you see it. There's a lot, and that's why it's very important. And part of that's all purification. Because if there's not a real mujahada going on, they'll get it from other ways. يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. Allah says in the Quran, He wants to remove from the family of the Prophet all impurities and to purify them. So they often go through a lot of tribulations. There's books written on it. Maqatir al-Tarabiyin, Abu Faraj al-Isbahani is one of the great books about all the horrible things that happened to the family and why. And it's really, to me, it's a proof of Islam. It's like Bani Israel. Bani Israel, a chosen group of people. Allah chose them. You can't, it's undeniable. Anybody that knows Jews, they have to recognize that about Jews. They have special qualities. They just do. It's as simple as that. It's undeniable. And they know it too. They sense it. They're always in the universities in the United States. Look where they are. They're on the first chairs, and they're always doing, they're sharp people. They're very intelligent people. They're outstrippers in many of their fields. They're great contributors to a lot of things. They have a lot of gifts. God's given them a lot of gifts. With those gifts come immense responsibility. They also have had immense tribulation in the world, because Allah doesn't give anything special to people without expecting something from them. And if they don't do that, they have tribulations. And that's what even the Orthodox Jews, that's what they consider those tribulations are from abandonment of the Torah. I mean, that's their own position about that. So it's very important for the Muslims in general, but for the family in specific, to be aware of their duties and their service. And you'll find many people in our community that are serving this deen the most. You'll find they're often related. I've seen that in many places. You'll find some of the most active people, and that it's from that blessing and prayers that were made for them and for their offspring and their family. But you will find that in many communities. And then if somebody's married to a sharif, they have to honor that. It's especially if it's a non-sharif with a woman, they really have to be careful. With the man also, just honoring the sharaf, because it's a thing. They also have to honor. It's a two-way street, and I'm not denying that. But like I said, the onus is on us to honor the children of the Prophet. Whether they honor that lineage or not is their business. But the onus is on us to honor